All right.
right.
Welcome to the Domestic Draft Podcast. I'm Evan Bierman here with Dan Slug.
Man.
It's National Deep Dish Pizza Day, Dan. And we've got a special guest coming on, and we're going to dive deep into the Bears' needs in the upcoming NFL draft that kicks off later this month. Dan, why don't you kick it off? What are you drinking, man?
I have a brewery that I've never heard of before, and I went to the store today here in Ocean Beach, California, San Diego, and it was on the bottom shelf. It's a brewing, ITZA. It's a brewing, and they're actually super local. I think they're probably home brewers, or at least they're renting out a small space. Reading up on them, they only have a 1-barrel brewing system as it goes right now, but ITZA is one of the co-owners. It's a husband and wife, so it's his last name, and it's a pretty cool story. It's a ancient Mayan name, and there's only a few families left in the world that have the last name ITZA, and it's a word that comes from the Mayan word itz, which means magic, and ha, which means water. So the ancient meaning is like water magic. So that is kind of their namesake there with the beer. And I mean, they just started, right? So they're established in May of 2021. I was doing a little research. They decided that it was a good time during the pandemic to open up a brewery and do a lot of testing at home. They don't have any space they're renting out. They don't have a tap room. So they're doing like online sales and only local pickup. But this beer I have is Golden Wave. It's a West Coast IPA, and they're only focusing on 2 styles of beer to start, which are West Coast IPAs and porters, because they feel like they can corner that market in porters out here in San Diego. But it's pretty good. This one, they use El Dorado hops, again, golden there as well. And it's kind of got a peach flavor to it. It's really good. I hope they do more, and I hope they get a tap room. It's a cool little story here, husband and wife. What about you?
Wow. Mine's kind of the opposite here. So I've got an old style, now owned by Pabst.
What's that?
Yeah, it's an old style. It's been around since the early 1900s. So the exact opposite of what you got going on over there. You might know Old Style as Chicago's beer. It even goes so far as to brand itself as such. You might see their signs hanging off of local taverns that may or may not be in business around the city, but Old Style isn't really Chicago's beer. It actually started in La Crosse, Wisconsin, where it was first brewed in 1902. The beer caught on more in Chicago than anywhere else, so you're getting a little Old Style history here, everyone. And by 1935, the company uprooted from Wisconsin and moved to Chicago.
Good choice.
But the connection between the brand and Chicago wasn't really sealed until 1950 when Old Style started sponsoring the Cubs. So that's kind of why you know them as the Cubs, beer. Signs came about in the 1970s. That's when Old Style began giving them out for free to bars that they'd done a lot of business with, even paying crews to install them at the time. Old Style remained primarily an Illinois brand until 2016 when it moved its operations back across the border to where it began. And now Old Style is brewed in Wisconsin and sold only in the Midwest. So I have here an Old Style. It is 4.64%. It's a lager, 2.88 on Untapped. So
there you go.
Great score. Pairs well, I think, with a Chicago dog, a day at Wrigley Field, or a Cubs W. So grab yourself an Old Style. We got Cubs opening day in 2 days. Pick up some at your local liquor store.
You ever have their Marzen that they do during Oktoberfest?
No, I haven't, but
actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. Yeah.
Actually pretty good. And actually pretty good, I think, is our next guest. Smooth. It's Will DeWitt. Will is a podcast host, content creator, and digital marketer for CHGO Sports. You can find him on Twitter at Will DeWitt. That's at WI11DEWITT. Will, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Guys, glad to be here. Not going to lie, I'm a little thirsty now after the intro.
Next time we'll make sure you're ready with the beer here.
Sounds good. Yeah, I cut back myself just after my wife and I had our firstborn in November, and beer makes me groggy, and didn't want to be like a groggy parent at night with baby. So definitely not into it as I used to be, but I love what you guys are doing here. Talking about the crafts, or not so much craft beer there with the Old Style. And actually, my local brewery, it's called Switch Yard over here in Bloomington, Indiana, came out with my favorite beer every year. It's a blackberry wheat style beer, and they make it local here with some local berries. And I wait, every spring for it to come out. I think it came out 2 days ago, so I'm definitely making a trip here this weekend because you guys talked me into it.
Nice.
There you go.
Sounds great.
That sounds great. Yeah. So I came aware of you probably like a year or so ago with Chicago Audible and a couple just seeing your Twitter and like looking after the Bears. So I'm curious, we're always wondering how our guest kind of got started and what the motivation was it or the origin story of all this. So, I mean, now you're over at CHGO. So how did all this get started? When and what was that process like for you?
100%. So for me, when I was going through my undergraduate, didn't really know what the heck I wanted to do. I was looking at physical therapy, teaching, business, and marketing. And after 3 years of bouncing around all those majors, I was like, geez, I got to really figure out what it is that my calling is and my passion. And it's always been the Chicago Bears ever since I was a young boy. And on top of that as well, my best friend from high school and I always said, like, hey, we can do like a web sports show. Like, why not? I never did too much like public speaking or anything of that nature. The first time I did like a student radio show here at IU, I was so nervous. It took my radio director like 7 months to get me on air. And from there, definitely got my footing underneath me and started an internship with an IU basketball podcast. And my mentor's like, well, I think this kind of model can follow, other teams, other sports, not just collegiate, professional. Do you have a team that you're interested in? I'll kind of teach you, everything behind the scenes, building a website, starting a podcast, growing an audience. And I mentioned the Bears, and I founded at the time, it was called Dub Bears Brothers. I did it with my that best friend I mentioned from high school. Met my current co-host Nicholas Moriano a year later on YouTube, and then we pretty much did live post-game shows for 2 years. Jumped into game previews and off-season talk from there, and really just kind of trial by fire sort of deal, just for 7 different years, just figuring it out and just being consistently there. And then the Bears got good in 2018 and the audience kind of blew up so much so the NFL decided to, slap a subpoena on the name. Like, you can't have Dub Bears Bros because the Chicago Bears decided they wanted to trademark Dub Bears.
Wow.
I was like, okay, can I do like Bears Brothers or anything? No, you have 10 days. And oh, by the way, you can't use orange anymore. If you want to use blue, you can use one or the other, but you can't use both in unison because of the ill will that I built my brand on, even though I was always like Bears fans. Like, that's how I was always promoted.
Yeah.
Marketed.
That's interesting.
You're big though when you're getting
subpoenas from the Bears. Yeah, you're like, okay, I'm doing something right.
They were just about to clinch the North, and then I get that overnight letter from downtown Times Square, New York City. Cease and desist all over the website.
Did it have a McCaskey signature on it?
It did not. It was only signed from the NFL's attorneys. So it wasn't even like the Bears who did this. It was the NFL itself. And I Googled them, and it told me they were represented by the same lawyers that also do the NHL and Disney. And I'm like, there's no fighting that. So the Chicago Audible came to be a couple late night sessions with my co-host at the time and just figuring out, like, what are we going to do for a rebrand? I was like, we're making a change. That's an Audible. They can't touch the word Chicago. That's, basic enough. And it kind of stuck.
I like it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that new name that you guys created there too. And you mentioned you met Nicholas on YouTube. Like, how did that happen? Tell us more about that.
Yeah. That little recommended video or the feature videos on the right-hand column.
Yeah.
I was scouring through like the comment section after one of my post-game shows near the end of the 2015 season. And there's Nick and a thumbnail in a dorm room. Like, who's this kid? What's he doing Bears post-game show? I was like, oh, and he's doing it solo, like 25 minutes, just talking in his dorm room. And found out he went to Iowa, found him on Twitter. We reached out and, hey, do you want to just like join once in a while? Yeah, that sounds cool. And we did that. And next thing you know, he just became a staple and natural. And we met, I think, about a year later in person for the first time, and we're like the best of friends now. It's crazy how the internet could bring people together hundreds of miles away with similar interests and passions. And I couldn't imagine my life without him here and building what we were able to do.
Man, that's an awesome story. And so you collectively, you built the Chicago Audible, and then you guys got picked up by CHGO, right? Which is where you guys are both at now. So like, how did that happen, and what was that like getting that call?
Was it like out of left field, or
definitely was out of left field? So I took a paternity leave, right? So my son was born mid-November, and I told myself, if the Bears are how they kind of played last year, I'm going to take the rest of the season off and just kind of be there with my baby. And definitely the best decision I've ever made. You don't get that time back. And I come back in January, and Nick was telling me that he's talking to a different company actually about like an acquisition of the brand. And Honestly, guys, doing that podcast for over 630 episodes, all about the Chicago Bears over the years, and at the same time, professionally having to kind of like build up my career and provide for my family, because the Chicago Audible is always just kind of like a side passion hustle. It wasn't really about making, money or anything like that. I was like, you know what? I'll look at a buyout, and the first offer is pretty much, just enough to get me out of the picture. I can come on once in a while if I wanted to, but they really wanted to hire Nick full time. Like, you know what? If that's what makes him happy, I always told him, like, if he had an opportunity to kind of cover the Bears full time, I would do whatever I need to do on my side. So we were talking to them for about a month, and we're about to sign their contract. It was like a Friday afternoon. And as I'm entering the meeting, kind of going over like the final details of that deal, I got an email from the CEO of All City Sports, which is Brandon Spano, who of course founded, CHGO as well as DNVR and PHNX. And he's like, Will, I have an offer for you. I'd love to get on the phone. And I called him back and told him, the current situation I was in. And he's asked like what the figures were. And he's pretty much, well, I'll double everything. I want you, I want Nick. Obviously, you know what you're doing because you built what you did. I want you on the backside to help build the CHGO brand. And whew, man, like what a whirlwind of emotions. Cause
like, okay.
You get a life-changing amount of money, like upfront, like no questions asked, like deposit into your bank account the next day if you sign the paper. And then from there, I get to quit like my day job. And on the personal side, like getting really bogged down on it. I bounced around from project management for a digital marketing agency that I did for like 4 different years. But due to COVID, the size of the staff went from 120 down to 12. And you're doing the work of 10 different people. It just was not sustainable. Yeah. And then I moved to a 9-to-5 job for the last year, marketing for a credit union in rural Indiana. It gets a little boring too, but it pays the bills. And now I'm just a month into, I think, still grasping the reality that I get to wake up. I do a little bit of stuff for them on the marketing side, but primarily, think Bears, write Bears, talk Bears. And that's what I get paid to do now. And it was one of those, I never thought it'd become a full-time gig, but I'm glad I stuck with it as long as I did to kind of be in this position.
Yeah.
And to do it with Nick and to get partnered alongside like an Adam Hogue, who's like known to be like the top guy in the beat, and a former Bear, Owen Kreutz. It's phenomenal. And I'm still kind of just blown away that, they saw me and Nick on the same kind of like, level as those kind of guys. And I don't know if you even know this, but like the CHGO YouTube channel is like the old Chicago Audible YouTube channel. They just, they bought that too and rebranded it to be more, widespread for the, more so than just Bears talk. So yeah, it's the engine that kind of was their, their launching pad sort of, if you will. And I never even knew that either until like the day of launch, and they're, hey, what's the password? Can you help us update these logos? I'm like, oh, wow. I thought it was going to be like just a Bears only channel still. And they're like, oh no, this is like it. I'm like,
that's awesome.
That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Something
Congrats
that
on that.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Evan.
You mentioned Oland. What's it like working with him?
Man, I've only got to see him a few days in person. That was intimidating. I don't know if you guys have been listening to the show, especially like when we launched, but my first impression was terrible. I was trying to look him in the eyes and give him a nice firm, he wanted to go for that handshake, and I'm still rusty. The pandemic was more of knucks than anything.
Yeah.
And I'm looking him in the eyes, and again, I'm nervous. This is Owen, effing Kreutz. Yeah. I've watched him play since I was a kid growing up, and I whiff and I just get fingers in. Owen goes from a big smile to, hey buddy, next time grab the whole hand. Okay. And walks away from me. Everyone there was like, oh, what are we in for here? But he can flip pretty quickly to even be like, that big teddy bear personality as well. But working with him, again, I'm not on the same days as he is off season wise. Once we get to the regular season, that should change. But with my experience with him and what I've seen, what he's been able to do for Nick, I feel like he's holding us even more accountable to like figure out like more substance behind like the analysis, like just calling it out. Like what specifically do you recall about this player that makes you think that? And so making sure we're on top of our game just a little bit as well, and holding us accountable, which I love, because sometimes with Nick and I over doing the same thing for 6 years together, I just have a trust factor. So if he tells me something about a player, I'm going to buy it. But Owen likes to ask why and what, and then having to kind of go through those thought exercises, I think helps me for sure to kind of take that analysis to the next level.
Yeah. Very cool. Are you an Indiana Bears fan? Did you grow up in Indiana?
Yeah, Northwest Indiana. So,
Okay.
grew up in the region, over right on the other side of the border, and grew up a Bears fan and a Sox fan, obviously a Bulls fan, growing up throughout the 90s as well. And I was actually born during a Bears game, Monday Night Football, Bears Vikings. And the
Not at
story
the
goes,
stadium you're talking about, right?
no, I was in the hospital room.
Okay.
Don't worry about that. But the story goes like my dad was cheering like go go go, and the doctor's like go, and my mom thought it was like for her to kind of get me into the world, but no, it was just
Touchdown.
touchdown watching the screen. So the Bears game was definitely on as I was born. And they lost that day, which I feel like just sums up my entire life being a Bears fan anyway. Like I should have known better. Like if they lost while I was being born, go find another team. But sometimes you can't choose the teams that kind of call you, and the Bears have always been that way for me, especially I think when I was 10. Like that's when I really started to understand the game. Brian Urlacher was coming into his own. I got his jersey. Madden was becoming a thing on like the PlayStation 2, so I just dove in like
memorize the
110%.
rosters.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? I always like asking fans like an outlier player that maybe like the mainstream doesn't know about as often or doesn't get written about that you were just a fan of, and specifically for a Bears player. I know for me, I always go back to like Brock Forte. Just being that practice squad running back, or like a Dane Sanzenbacher. Do you have any of those players that just like you just recall and you're like, those were my guys, those were the people I was pulling for the hardest?
So this one everyone knows, but like Matt Forte, I got to meet him before his rookie season started. I also met Chris Williams. So Chris Williams was drafted in the first round that year. Matt Forte was the second round pick. I think I was around 15 years old and got to sit there and talk to Matt Forte, and he was just like the most humblest, guy I could ever imagine. And Chris Williams was pretty much like he was sidetracked because there was a scuff on his shoe.
Didn't he have one leg longer than the other? Wasn't that his whole thing of why?
Yeah, he had a weird hitch like that too. So ever since then, and like I was like, oh my gosh, this Matt Forte kid, even though I was like 13, 12, I was like, hey, he's gonna be something, and he panned out. So knowing him before other Bears fans, I think was like always that kind of I hold dear. But I'm definitely like a smaller time player that he doesn't have a lot of positive recollection either would be like a Caleb Haney, because he was like an undrafted guy, and my mom really pushed me to like be comfortable around athletes at a young age. So like we would go to training camp, and I couldn't just go there and hold the football out. Like I would have to call players up by name, get them over, and try to make conversation with them, which, in many ways I appreciate from my mom, because it kind of led to where I'm at today, feeling that comfortable around some of these, bigger people in our worlds. But met Caleb Haney, and I took a photo with him, and then my mom ran to CVS, got that photo printed. Very next day, go back, hey Caleb, I got a photo where you can sign of us, and I also signed one of you and me, so you can take it back, like as a joke. 2 years later, run back into him at training camp, mention that, and he's like, oh my god, you're on my mantle, I have this photo of you like still up there and it's framed.
That's awesome.
What?
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so for him to like appreciate it that much, because again, he's an undrafted quarterback, he's sitting behind I think Grossman as well for a couple years in Orton, and then Cutler too, once Cutler came over via the trade. That was always a kind of a fun one to like, wow, these are people too. So it's one of those I always kind of remember kind of fondly.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story about Caleb Haney too.
I think the whole city was pulling for Caleb Haney, and then he came on. I was like a playoff performance. So one of the it Cutler that got hurt, or someone got hurt? He came in, he just like threw like 2 interceptions in a row. Like,
that was the NFC Championship game, unfortunately for Caleb. You can't get thrown into the wolves like that for someone that I don't think had any career snaps prior. Like Todd Collins went in there and like, nope, Todd doesn't have it. Let's try Caleb. I couldn't imagine how he would have felt. But that's most people's memory of Caleb, was losing that NFC Championship game. Poor guy.
Yeah. All right. Let's transition to this year's Bears team. They kicked off their voluntary offseason workouts on Monday. Were there any names that showed up that surprised you, and any names that didn't show up that surprised you?
No, I don't think so. Again, I don't expect 100%, attendance right here. I was so happy when I saw the video of I saw my guy, Jesper Horsted there. He got a little bit of a haircut though. I was like, dang, he
signed too. Yeah,
he did sign. He got that contract. People who listen to my podcast know I've been on the Horsted hype train, as I call it, for over 3 years now. Like there's a whole year they hit him on the practice squad, and I didn't forget about him there. And I'm thankful that the new coaching staff sees what potential can be there as well. Let's see if he actually gets, an opportunity with like what Luke gets. He's going there, but I'm glad Roquan Smith's there and David Montgomery, because those are like the glue guys, the core guys that even like the new regimes kind of mentioned, and they're both on contract years. So it's easy for them to look at it and go, you know what, I can stay home unless you give me a deal, but neither of them did that. So I appreciate it. And I should only help kind of, better that culture that they're really trying to kind of like flip here in Hallis Hall to be one of more of accountability. So yeah, seeing them in the building, not that it surprised me, but I really did appreciate it.
Yeah, Horsted seems like he really clicked a little bit with Fields last year. So that was great that they brought him back, I think. And
what was that, 3 touchdowns in that last preseason game or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Cole Kmet's the only other tight end on the roster now, right? So I think it's just those two.
It's just those two as of right now. Yeah. They didn't bring back JP Holtz.
No Jimmy change Graham from last year, right? What do we have, 8 at this time? I feel like so.
Yeah,
that's a big difference so far, I guess, with Poles and Pace. Do you think we see a Nick Foles trade happen at all? Have we just been talking about that for the last 2 years? Is that ever going to happen?
They want it to happen.
Yeah,
they've tried nobody wants Nick.
They've tried everything in the media.
Yeah, when they have to go there at the NFL annual meeting and put it, publicly, like, we are exploring our trade options for Nick Foles, like the whole world to hear. You're getting a little bit desperate to move on from that. I know they paid him his bonus, so then they can hopefully unload him a little bit easier. He's someone that I doubt they move him before the draft again, like somehow surprise, like 7th rounder or anything like that. He could be someone that can sit on this roster through training camp, an injury happen around the league, and someone's like, we need a good backup. Let's bring in a guy like Nick Foles, and then they will. And, maybe the Bears will get a conditional 6th or a conditional 7th out of them. I think you guys would feel closely aligned to me, where it's, I don't care about the $3 million. It's just a roster spot.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I like that who'd they pick up? Simeon, the Northwestern kid. I kind of like that pickup. I like that they're restructuring the quarterback room as well, because it didn't work. And it was just, it was very awkward. It seemed like those 3 kind of guys who have all had starting experience in the league, but then they're told to help Justin, but then they're all playing as well at the same time. So it just felt really weird. So I like that it's going to be Justin's room, and have some support in there as well. This next question was written by Evan. I find it hilarious, but I'm going to ask you it because I don't believe in it at all, but we'll see what you say about it. Do the Bears suddenly have a shot at the NFC North with the departure of Davante Adams?
Think about it.
I don't know if that's a funny question. I love to entertain it. It is only April, so I can say yes.
There we go.
I can say yeah. I mean,
they
have the second easiest schedule in the entire NFL. And last year, I think they faced the second hardest schedule. And that was with a coach that is so stubborn in his own ways and won't adapt for anything or anyone. If you have Eberflus here, who's going to focus on getting that defense to where, back closer to a defense that we saw in 2018. And now you have someone in control of the offense that can make it, even if they go from 30th to 16, there's a chance, because again, no Davante Adams. Let's see if the Packers even draft a wide receiver in the first round to help Aaron Rodgers. By God, I hope not. I hope they keep missing the mark there. Yeah, go for another quarterback in this year's draft class. I don't care. They can go ahead and draft 2 in the first round for all I care. But yeah, I think chance, sure. Likely, maybe not, but I wouldn't 100% count them out right now. Let's see how the draft goes. If the Bears can make any strategic free agency moves too between now and training camp, they're being really patient. But I'm hopeful that can pay off, getting quality vets for a good price, and maybe the quantity over, I guess, quality per se. But also you're getting guys that they've mentioned. They're being picky with who they're bringing in to build this culture back up. And I think that's important. You don't always need the most talented, as long as you're bringing in guys that can pick one another up and people play at a higher level because they respect their teammates and their coaching staff. And I think that's something we haven't seen in Chicago in some time. And I look forward to kind of getting that, reinstilled here in Hallis Hall.
Yeah. Poles has been really patient. The Hot Bears Twitter topic, I think the biggest one that I've seen is, are we going to trade for a veteran wide receiver, or are we just going to try and build this through the draft? Right. And I think some of the big names that have been coming up, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, which I doubt that ever happens. And Brandon Cooks, though, is one that I think is going to get moved at some point. But do you think they're looking to do that? Should they look to do that? Or should they just stick with the plan and try and build this through the draft?
All options should be on the table. You don't want to close any door opportunity until, you deem it's not the best decision for your franchise. Trading for a guy, I don't think Poles feels like he's in a position where he needs to do that. I don't think he would like to leverage and kind of broker all that future draft capital that I'm sure he's looking forward to getting a first round pick next year. And I don't think he would like to, let go of that. So simple. I think what Brandon Cooks is, they're looking for a second rounder. I don't think.
Ooh, that's
pretty high.
Yeah, I don't think they would want to go that route if that's the asking price. Now, if you're going down like a 4, maybe you look at something like that. But still, I think the Bears, when you look at the wide receiver draft class that's in front of them, there's a really good chance they can get someone talented in the second, maybe even third round this year. And they have 3 picks in the top 75. So yeah, I'd just be patient and see what kind of comes to you right now. And there's still plenty of guys in free agency, not even just trade, that if the draft doesn't pan out like they would expect or hope, you can still get someone quality and figure out that long-term plan. Because a guy like Brandon Cooks, DJ, Metcalf, like, yeah, you bring him in, he's here for a while and he's a stud, but you can also find someone in the draft on a rookie deal that you can maximize. And I know they need to really maximize Justin's rookie contract, and the balance of doing that now versus the latter half of this deal for Justin, I think it's going to be, it's delicate, but the only way to do it correctly is the approach that we're seeing right now, which is one full of patience. Is as much as it sucks, because now I'm doing a podcast 5 days a week and I want things to talk about. I understand that, he needs to be deliberate with his actions.
Yeah. With that draft coming up and kind of the lack of action we've seen with Poles, it does seem like he's taking the approach to kind of not tear it down, but really focus in on the foundation of this team. And he constantly is talking about building the line, looking at being a former lineman, looking at the offensive line, looking at the defensive line. We had the Cincinnati guy in here, but unfortunately the physical didn't work out. Do you see with those 3 picks in the top 75, we're taking at 2 linemen at least, offensive, defense, or all linemen? I mean, it seems as though like he's going to want to start slow here and to make sure he gets that line set for Fields. And then kind of as we go here in Fields' career, sprinkle in those playmakers, because we know you can't really, optimize the playmakers if you can't have time to throw them the ball.
Right. I think that was the whole meme I kept seeing last year with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, like the whole dilemma that the Bengals fans had about that. It was like, if you don't have anyone to protect Burrow, it doesn't matter. Like Chase can be open, but he's not going to have the time. Now, obviously, it didn't work out exactly that way, but the Super Bowl, I think, was a perfect, case in point of you still need a damn good offensive line if you actually want to, go all the way here in this league. When I look at those top 3 picks, God, I hope his best player available. I hope he doesn't feel like he needs to reach for a need, whether that be offensive line, interior, a tackle, replacing someone like Larry Ogunjobi as well. Because again, that was his first big free agency attempted signing, but he missed out. So if he looks at someone in the draft, like, hey, he can be that Larry Ogunjobi, but he's a little bit, down my draft board. But if I don't draft him now, I won't have a chance later. I hope he doesn't make a mistake like that. I would not be surprised if you see 1 offensive lineman, 1 defensive lineman, and a receiver gone with the first 3 picks. But also you're looking at a pretty big need at cornerback as well, opposite of Jalen Johnson. I'm a big Thomas Graham fan, but you can't put all your eggs in the Thomas Graham basket right now. So it can go so many ways. And that's what makes this draft, I think, challenging to kind of project what the Bears are going to do, but also very exciting to see what exactly Ryan Poles has up his sleeve. If anything, fancy, whether it be a move up or move down, or just letting the board kind of fall to him and see if he can maximize some of that talent that's available. And if he does trade down, if he can get, an additional pick or 2 in the top 150, like what can he make of those additional resources? And I would love to see, if that comes to fruition, what kind of young core you can kind of put together in a hurry.
Yeah, I feel like we do have a lot of holes, so I wouldn't be opposed to them trading back at all. But I do feel like if we don't get a wide receiver there, then we're going in with Mooney, Pringle, and we signed somebody else too that I feel like was very low tier player, and that's very tough to see, what you're going to get out of Fields. I think.
Didn't we get like Aquavius St. Brown? Wasn't that one of our?
Yeah. Those long names that I used to say when I was doing the podcast for a hobby, I don't get paid to pronounce these names correctly every time, but now I kind of do.
Now you do.
Equanimus. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah,
there you go.
But what I've seen I think the Bears put out an article today about what all the analysts are saying, and some of the names that are coming up from everybody are Roger McCreary, the Auburn cornerback, undersized guy that's draft stock's been kind of sinking because he's got shorter arms, but he's got great coverage skills. So maybe he'll fall to us there. Another one, Tulsa tackle Tyler Smith has been a big name, it looks like. And then Georgia receiver George Pickens, who's a big guy, long, athletic, 4.47 40. If we can
Bears
get
love
those
drafting,
guys,
the Bears love drafting Georgia products, man. We love Georgia products.
Well, what do you think?
We'll see if that continues without Ryan Pace, because he definitely had, an affinity for those
pipeline
Bulldogs.
there.
Yeah, a little bit. Out of those guys, I do like myself, a McCreary. I just wrote something for allchgo.com about him and just kind of breaking down like why he would make sense. And you hit it. The only reason that people are even getting soured on him is because he has short arms. But when I watch him play, and again, I know if he doesn't have the wingspan, you don't have the reach, and that can always lead to some, one-on-one matchup kind of problems in the NFL. I understand it. But this dude knows how to play football. Like, he's physical in the line. He likes to be an oppressed man. He's really good in like a cover 2 zone where he can read quarterback's eyes. He's really decent with those football instincts, can make, breaks in the football. And even though he doesn't have like that long end speed either, he's super quick. He has a tremendous burst and, closing speed, whether it be receiver in front of him making a catch and tackling him in a hurry, or getting in there and run support too. So he's someone that I like that he's physical, but he's not someone that's overly aggressive against the ball. So he's like physical yet calculated with his aggression, which is a blend that, I'm really intrigued by. And he's someone that a month and a half ago, like around the combine, he was like all consensus first round pick. And now he's someone that, could be available when the Bears were on the clock at 39 and even again at 48, which, like, what kind of steal would you get if Roger McCreary falls that far? And, if someone's listening and like, I don't like the short arms, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you, but this kid does know how to play football.
I feel like that's where this team's going. The direction is just drafting football players. The center they got from Green Bay, they're like, yeah, he's an asshole, but that's kind of offensive line. We want these kind of pricks up there defending our quarterback and not taking any shit from any other team. New coach, defensive coordinator, new OC from Green Bay. What is this player, the play style going to look like for this team? Obviously, we know we got a new formation on the defensive end, but I'm a little more curious offensively, going from Nagy to Getsy. What's this offense going to look like?
Well, oh my gosh, maybe it'll be an offense that changes week in and week out based off of your opponent. That may be the first thing that I'll notice when we get into the regular season here, that we'll have someone that can not just scout the opponent, but scout yourselves, figure out what you're good at, what you're bad at, and double down on what you're good at and throw away what you're not. Seems like the Bears, they are always so bad at, certain things, whether it be, abandoning the run too soon or being overly aggressive on like 4th downs. And apparently Matt Nagy didn't care. And that's why he doesn't have a job this year. But I would look at Green Bay's offense, because we're getting Luke Getsy from, over there, and kind of have a feel for what they're going for, a back by committee approach. So whether it be David Montgomery and a guy that I like, a Khalil Bell, kind of carrying the rock a bit. And then you get some of that quick passing game going on with Justin off of the play action, getting him moving out of the pocket, kind of like they do with Aaron Rodgers as well. And then, of course, letting him launch this thing, because Justin has such an arm, and taking some of those calculated deep shots as well. And I think what we'll see is a quarterback that trusts his game plan in Justin Fields, can go through his progression a little bit easier, because these plays and the schemes are built around what he does best and how he processes the fields and defenses. And I know you said you don't want to talk about defense, or you're not as interested, but I'm interested about Coach Eberflus's defensive background and how that's going to help Justin. And he's already mentioned, like, yeah, we're going to be in rooms, and I can tell Justin exactly why this defense baited him into this specific throw or made him make this mistake. So that way, if he sees it again, he can understand it from the, like the DC's sort of view. And I don't think he had that previously with like Coach Nagy, because it was always how he saw the game unfolding. but I was going to kind of get the perspective from the other side of the field. And that should help him, I think, get up to speed a little bit quicker than we saw a year ago.
That's a great point. I feel like all these teams now want that hot offensive coordinator, the next Sean McVay. But if you think about it from a defensive standpoint, for him to be able to tell them, hey, this is what's happening out there, and this is what the defense is thinking, and this is how you can bait them in. Like, I think that's a great way to look at it. It's a little positivity going into the season. And with that, what's your record for the Bears before we get you out of here? What's going to happen here?
If I was Lovie Smith, I would say 16-0. I used to ask him that every training camp as a kid. Lovie, what's our record this year, coach? 16-0. And the first year he told me that was the year we went to the Super Bowl back in 2006.
There we go.
So, right. And they started off undefeated. And I'm like, he knew what he was talking about.
This guy's a genius.
Yeah. I was in like 8th grade. I'm like, the Bears coach told me that they're going to go, win every game. And here they are 6-0. And they just came back against the Cardinals. Like, watch this. And then, of course, I think they only lost like 3 that year, but still a tremendous season by them.
That Cardinals game was nuts.
Yes, it was. It was one of those where that was before, social media and really highlights in general getting circulated quickly. And most of my friends already went to bed. And when we got to school the next day and I told them the Bears won, no one believed me. And I was like, I had to go in like the computer lab in the library. Like, all right, let's pull up the score. Look, they came back and won. No, they did not. They're down by 3 scores when I went to bed. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Let's see, 17 game schedule, which I'm still getting used to, like numbers in my head of how that looks. I feel like they're still at that 8-9, 9-8 range, which I'm okay if they fall like 8-9, but it's an 8-9 where you see a lot of growth out of Justin Fields. This team looks like they're really getting some things together. They're not just losing games because they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're losing games because they're going up better opponents. That's how I want to see it go. If Justin doesn't progress this year, it's a lost season. If he does, and that gives Ryan Poles another year to kind of retool. Next year, they have so much free cap space next off season. If they see potential out of Justin, they can go and, back up the Brinks truck for anyone that he wants.
Right.
And then you have another year of drafting under this regime and forming and molding this roster to your liking. So, and then now you're looking at a good second half of Justin's rookie contract. So 8-9, 9-8. Give me a month or two after the draft. I'll talk it up to like, 10-7, 11-6.
Right.
We'll get there for sure. Don't you worry. But I'll be just like Ryan Poles and be patient with my expectations. So I'll sit right there in the middle ground for now.
Love to hear it. Bears are going to the Super Bowl per Will DeWitt.
Yeah.
Got it.
Is that what I said?
No. But thanks so much. Again, y'all, he is Will DeWitt. He is the podcast host, content creator, and digital marketer for CHGO Sports. And you can find him on Twitter at Will DeWitt. That's WI11DEWITT. Will, thanks so much for being here, man.
Yeah, no, thank you both, Dan, Evan, for having me on. It was a lot of fun and I appreciate the time, and hopefully I can do it again sometime.
Thanks a lot, Will. Man. All right. Thanks again to Will DeWitt for coming on. Again, you can find him on Twitter at WI11DEWITT, Will DeWitt. All right, Dan, it's National Deep Dish Pizza Day. We mentioned it at the top of the show. What's your top 3 deep dish pizza places in the city? Or I guess in your city.
In the city, right? So I haven't lived in Chicago in a couple of years. So that's why my list is a little, I feel like if I was in Chicago, I would have a respectable list, like something that's like, oh, these are the ones that are talked about. There's a lot of publicity with them, articles, arguments against these. My number 1 will always be Lou Malnati's, just because it was my introduction to deep dish, and it's also my favorite. I grew up with one in my hometown. It's where I like go and like my family gets together, or anytime we're back in the city, my wife and I, like, it's always on our list to get Lou's. It makes me feel awful after I eat it. I know that going in that the end result's not going to be great, but I'll sacrifice that because the flavor and the taste is so good. Number 2 is my neighborhood, where I would go like spend hours like sitting outside like Clerks, right, with my friends. It's Little Sicily. They do thin crust, but they also do deep dish. This is also the one where, like, if my dad was going to order delivery or pickup, right, within our neighborhood, it was going to be Little Sicily. They've been there forever. It used to just be like a walk-up countertop where it's like just to go and delivery pizza. when we were in high school, they bought the store next to them and expanded. It's a family-owned operation. I know Giuseppe's probably still working the corner or the counter there. I could walk in, go to
the corner. Is this in Schaumburg?
This is in Schaumburg.
Okay.
So I can go in. Well, it used to be White Hen next door and get an Arizona tea. I think it's a 7-Eleven now. But I'd go get the White Hen Arizona tea. I'd go get my slice, and like me and my buddies in high school would literally sit there for like 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon and just eat pizza and hang out. My last one, rounding out the list, is a local one here in San Diego. Now, San Diego does not do pizza well, and I'll stand by that. They don't. But this place up in La Jolla, they do 2 styles of pizza. They do New York thin crust and Chicago deep dish. Like, so they're not their own like pizzeria that's like, this is our pie. They adopted 2 styles and they do it very well. Regions has been in the area for a while, but I think it was like 2006 that a chef bought this business out, and like the sales went from like 500,000 to like 2.5 mil after his first year. And they were asking him like, what do you attribute all this success to? And he just improved all the ingredients. He just like doubled down on the ingredients that were going into the pizzas. And I would say if anyone's visiting San Diego and you want to get a taste of home, you want to get a Chicago deep dish, go to Regents up in La Jolla. They do it right. What about you, man?
Okay. Did not see San Diego pizzeria making it onto the top 3.
I mean, I had to. It's the only one I eat out here.
All right.
I'm getting deep dish.
All right. I respect it. My number 1 is always going to be Pizzeria Uno. And I think, I love their pizza, number 1, but number 2, it's the founders of, the deep dish. So founders Ike Sewell and Rick Ricardo are credited with creating the deep dish pizza. If you didn't know, back in 1943.
And you've been to the original location, right?
I've been to the original location. I went there with my dad 2 years ago, and we did a like pizza making
workshop,
class.
Right?
Yeah. So that was kind of cool too, to like hear the history of it, and also, like build your own deep dish pizzas.
I'll stand by though. Like I haven't had it, so I'm going to trust your opinion on it, but I know they franchised it, right? Or is it separate? Because there's like other Unos that are like in strip malls, and there was one of
those are all bad. I'm going to tell you right now, those are all bad. Yeah.
It's like not the same pizza, right?
It's not the same pizza at all. No,
so you got to go to the original.
Pizzeria Uno, the original. It's downtown. It's on Ohio Street. And then there's DeWitt, which was the second location to serve deep dish pizza. That's same owners, like right down the street from that. So go downtown Chicago, Pizzeria Uno. It's on Ohio. Number 2 for me is Pequod's, and there's a lot of people. I feel like it's a split on this one. Some people love it.
Yeah.
Some people hate it. Because it's a little bit different than, like Lou's or Gino's or Giordano's or anything like that. But Pequod started in 1970. They got the caramelized crust. That's their thing, right? Dough is baked actually it's a thin layer of cheese inside the dough, and that's what gives it its flavor. It's fantastic. I like the caramelized crust, so that's why I'm a big fan of it.
I like the caramelized crust too, but if the crust is the best part of your pizza, I don't think it's a good pizza.
The rest of the pizza is great too. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a little
and then
spongy.
my number 3 is Lou's. I like Lou's as well. That was opened in 1971. They also try to claim that they were one of the first people to do the deep dish, and maybe they were. I'm not sure, but they are definitely the most well-known chain, I think, in the Chicagoland area. And then they have some locations. I think you were talking about.
They're expanding,
Phoenix, and they're all over the place now. So almost like a Portillo's.
Right.
So those are my top 3. It's deep dish pizza day. Get yourself a deep dish any day of the week, in my opinion. Love it.
Any day of the week, get a deep dish.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm all about it.
Pack them in, man. Do you get it often, or is it like more ceremonial, or if someone's feeling it? Because I feel like
2 pieces of it, that's a lot, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, a large pizza is usually like 8 or, something like that. So
we have a bucket list every time we come home. Of like, all right, there's certain food from Chicago you got to get. It's like Italian beef and a deep dish pizza, and then go to like local spots that you just like just serve up awesome food.
Yeah. So scoop one of those for opening day. Happy opening day this week. It's in 2 days.
So soon, dude. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be
one
awesome.
for our fantasy baseball season to start, and 2 is because I have been talking myself into the Cubs being like a sleeper team. That it's like a misfit of toys, misfit island of toys that are just gonna band together. They're probably gonna trade Contreras. They'll get rid of some of the bold personalities, but they'll they'll just have some baseball players, and I think they're going to get the job done. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, but I could be completely wrong.
Stroman's been so fun on Twitter. I feel like he's leading the hype train right now. Him and our boy Dom, the director of morale over there. But yeah, I'm excited for Cubs opening day. That's gonna be great. Seiya, his debut.
He's looking good.
And then March Madness finished off Monday night. Kansas, largest comeback in national championship game history to beat North Carolina.
16 at half. I thought they were down 15 at halftime.
Yeah, they were down 15 at halftime, but at one point in the first half, they were down 16. So they overcame 16. It's the largest deficit in national championship.
This was an awesome tournament.
It was. And that final like minute two of this game especially was great. Kansas almost blew it. I mean, they threw that inbounds pass and the guy stepped out of bounds. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How did you stay in bounds so you get fouled? Like, but and then that shot, everyone's holding their breath. It was just a fun game to watch, I thought. And North Carolina beating Duke. Another great game.
Yeah. Tons of storylines. Love it. Love March Madness. Sad it's over. I didn't see a lot of like crazy prospects in it. But we'll see come draft, but I liked it. You got anything else, man? You got a fast fact, or you want me to go with my would you rather?
I do have a fast fact. It's a Chicago beer fact, actually. So Dan, what is Chicago's top selling beer? This is back in 2019, I guess, is the latest they have the information.
Is it beer from Chicago or beer inside Chicago?
Top selling in Chicago.
So it's not necessarily a Chicago brewery.
Could be any beer. It could be.
It's probably Miller Lite.
So that's a great guess. Miller Lite has been the leader for a long time, and then it was passed in 2019 by Modelo Especial.
Love that. I love myself Modelo.
It was actually the top selling in sales.
You get a Mexican beer on a hot day, it's gonna taste good no matter what. Put a lime in there. It's like that concoction of a cheap, any Mexican beer, but then you put a lime in it, it's going to cost half of these craft beers, and it's just delicious. It's refreshing. It's great.
Yeah. So they're number one. And then Miller Lite, like we said, was number two. And then Bud Light was number three. Actually, a pretty distant third. So Modelo Especial, 70 million. Miller Lite, 67 million. Bud Light, 41 million. So pretty close at the top. And then Miller in second. So that's my fast fact for the day. What do you got do you got a would you rather, Dan?
I do. Would you rather? This is we'll see how you answer. We'll see how I phrase it. Would you rather, for transportation purposes, for a year, you have to use it for the next year of your life. Would you rather have all-inclusive access to a yacht or all-inclusive access to a private jet?
The jet, for sure.
You're going jet.
Yeah, you can go anywhere with that thing. I mean, do I have to pay for the gas?
No, I'm saying all-inclusive.
Yeah.
You're just going to jet around?
Oh, yeah.
You don't like the experience.
You can visit way more places with that.
You're not a captain. I see it. You're not a captain.
You don't have to worry about getting seasick either. Yeah. What about you?
But it's a yacht. It's a yacht. I don't think you're going to get seasick on a yacht.
People get seasick on yachts.
How about me? I'd probably go yacht. I want to do
You're just being contrarian right now.
Well, sure, but also no. I actually think I'd want to go yacht because I don't know, like you're traveling, but also you're already on the trip while you're traveling. A PJ, like you have a destination, and once you get there, you're off the jet. But like the yacht, and it's like an insane yacht in my mind. I'm going to like Monaco. I'm pulling up, watching like F1 races there. I'm gonna go like all these embankments and just go along the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, the Pacific, and just all these port towns. I don't know. I think that'd be sick.
Monaco for F1 would be the best. I mean, that would be pretty epic. So, all right. That has been our show today. Thanks again to our guest, Will DeWitt, for joining us. For Dan Slowick, I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening.
Cheers.